There is a kind of tiredness that sleep cannot touch. It sits beneath the skin like a slow vibration, humming quietly even when you rest. It does not announce itself with yawns or heavy eyes. It announces itself with silence, with disinterest, with the fading of light in your voice. It waits for you each morning, not with cruelty, but with familiarity, because it knows you. It has watched you pretend for too long, smile for too long, explain for too long, and somewhere along the way, you stopped expecting to wake up refreshed. You tell yourself that you are fine, that everyone feels this way. You drink coffee, scroll through noise, force yourself to move, and call it living. But deep down, something inside you whispers, this is not living, this is survival. It is not laziness, it is depletion. The kind that comes when your mind has carried too much for too long without being seen. You are not unmotivated, you are unacknowledged, and that difference changes everything. Because the world does not see what it takes for you to just exist. They see your calm face, your polite words, your ability to function. They do not see the invisible weight pressing against your ribs, the one you carry quietly. They call it strength, you call it habit. But there is something else happening beneath your exhaustion. You are tired, not only because of what you do, but because of what you feel. The mind burns more energy, resisting its truth, than living it. You keep holding in emotions that were meant to flow. You feel sadness and call it weakness. You feel anger and call it ungratefulness. You feel loneliness and call it overthinking. So you bury it all, and then wonder why your body feels heavy. This is the fatigue of emotional suppression. Your brain is constantly filtering, managing, editing itself to fit what feels safe. Every unspoken truth, every fake smile, every delayed tear, it all costs energy. You think you are just tired, but you are actually over-contained. And sometimes, when you are alone, you can feel it rising. A strange ache in your chest, a dull pressure behind your eyes, like something trying to escape from years of silence. You think it is stress, but it is the body's memory of being unheard. It is the echo of all the times you said, I am fine, when you were not. People often misunderstand this kind of tiredness. They assume it comes from overwork, lack of sleep, or diet. But there is a deeper tiredness, one that comes from emotional dissonance. When the person you appear to be and the person you truly are drift too far apart, the gap between them drains you. Pretending consumes energy. Authenticity restores it. They tell you to rest. But how do you rest in a world that only values productivity? How do you slow down when stopping feels like failure? So you keep running, not towards something, but away from the fear of falling behind. They call it ambition. But sometimes it is avoidance. You are not chasing success. You are escaping stillness. Because stillness might make you feel what you avoided for years. You know this fatigue well. The one that hides behind politeness and composure. It visits you at night when the noise stops. You lie in bed and feel a strange emptiness, like a room echoing after everyone has left. You scroll, you distract, you fill the silence. But silence is honest. It tells you the truth your mind keeps postponing. It tells you that the fatigue is not from doing too much, but from feeling too little that is real. There was a time when life felt textured, colors, sounds, laughter, curiosity. Now everything feels like an obligation. You cannot remember the last time you did something without purpose, without calculating its worth or outcome. It is not burnout from work, it is burnout from self-abandonment. From repeatedly leaving your own needs behind to meet expectations. You call it being responsible. But responsibility without self-compassion turns into slow erosion. They say healing begins with awareness, but even awareness feels exhausting when you have lived on autopilot for too long. The mind resists change, not because it loves the pain, but because the pain has become predictable. And predictability feels safe. People rarely see this side of you, the quiet battles behind your calm tone, the self-negotiations you make to appear fine. They call you strong, but strength is not what you feel. You feel numb, and numbness is not absence of pain, it is pain's disguise. You wonder when it started. Maybe when you learned that expressing your needs made others uncomfortable. Maybe when love felt conditional on your performance. Maybe when peace meant silence and silence meant safety. It moves through you like fog. This tiredness that never leaves. It fills your bones, slows your thoughts, dulls your desire. You start confusing comfort with peace, distraction with recovery. You rest, but never feel restored. And sometimes, even in laughter, you feel detached, like watching your life from the outside. Moments pass, people talk, but you are somewhere else entirely. This is not absence. It is emotional dissociation. The mind's quiet survival trick. You adapt so well that no one suspects you are fading. You do what must be done. Speak when spoken to. Laugh when expected. But inside, everything feels dimmed, like a movie played on low brightness. It is not depression in its loudest form. It is the whispering kind. The one that hides behind routines and productivity. The one that smiles in group photos but disappears inside when the lights go out. Because fatigue is not only physical, it is existential. It is the weariness of carrying meaning that no longer fits you. Of living stories that once protected you, but now confine you. You feel it in your body, because your mind is tired of pretending. And so, you wake up again, same morning, same rhythm, same numb air. You function, you perform, you endure. But somewhere deep down, a quiet voice keeps asking, when do I get to feel alive again? It deepens when you begin to wonder if this is just who you have become. Fatigue starts to feel like your identity, not a symptom, but a personality trait. You forget what aliveness used to feel like, the way a starving man forgets taste. You convince yourself that neutrality is peace, and that emptiness is maturity. But it is not. It is the quiet decay of a spirit that has been forced to perform too long. And the tragedy is that you cannot remember when the performance began. It began slowly, through survival. You adapted to expectations that never matched your nature. You learned to earn approval before you ever learned to rest. And so, even now when no one is watching, you still perform in your own mind. It watches you. This tiredness, it has no voice, but it shapes your every decision. It convinces you that slowing down will make you irrelevant. It feeds on your fear of being replaced. It does not scream. It whispers. It whispers that you must be useful to be loved. It whispers that your worth depends on your contribution, and you listen, because you have for so long. You, who once dreamed vividly, now measure life in tasks completed. You say, I am fine, while counting how many things you must fix today. Your mind is a checklist, not a sanctuary. And at night, when you lie in bed, you replay every word you said, trying to decide whether you disappointed anyone today. This is not care, it is self-surveillance. You have become both the prisoner and the warden of your own mind. You monitor every emotion for acceptability, and call that control when really, it is fear. You long for freedom, but freedom feels dangerous, because if you stopped managing everyone's perception of you, what would be left? Would anyone stay if you stopped performing? That question alone keeps you tired. They do not talk about this kind of exhaustion, the one that comes from feeling invisible while constantly being seen. People look at you and see reliability, composure, responsibility. They do not see how you hold yourself together out of reflex, not strength. They praise your discipline, your endurance, your calm, but they never ask what it costs. They assume you are put together. They do not see that the glue is self-denial. You want to tell them that you are not fine, but you have forgotten how to explain fatigue that is not physical. Words like tired and burned out sound too small for something this vast. So you stay quiet, hoping someone might see it anyway. But people rarely recognize what they have never felt. They label what they do not understand. And so you smile again, the mask that fools even yourself sometimes. You carry memories like weights, not memories of events, but of emotions that never found closure. Every unresolved feeling becomes a ghost inside your nervous system. They haunt you in subtle ways. A heaviness in your chest, a sudden disinterest in what you once loved, a constant urge to distract yourself. The human mind cannot heal what it refuses to name. You tell yourself you are over it, but your body remembers. It remembers every dismissal, every silence, every unspoken apology. It remembers the pressure to be okay when you were falling apart. This is why fatigue lingers, because the body keeps the emotional score. You rest your body, but your mind stays in fight or flight. It scans for danger, even in peace. Because peace to you feels unfamiliar, even unsafe. They say time heals. But time does not heal repetition. If every day feels the same, you are not healing, you are looping. The mind replays the same emotional script until you rewrite it consciously. And that rewriting requires energy, the very thing you no longer have. You think you are weak, but weakness has nothing to do with it. Your nervous system has been overstimulated for years. You are not designed to be alert all the time, to manage chaos and call it normal. They do not tell you that fatigue is often a form of grief. Grief for the moments you missed while surviving. Grief for the parts of yourself you abandoned to be accepted. Grief for the simple things that no longer move you. And grief is not dramatic. It is quiet. It does not cry. It withdraws. It shows up as detachment, as apathy, as I do not care anymore. But beneath that sentence lives 1,000 unshed tears. You, who once felt everything deeply, now feel almost nothing. You crave intensity just to remind yourself you are still alive. That is why chaos feels addictive. Because chaos at least makes you feel something. You find yourself scrolling endlessly, eating without hunger, working past exhaustion, replaying songs that hurt, all to feel some form of aliveness. But aliveness built on pain is only another form of fatigue. You cannot escape the emptiness by filling it with noise. You must let silence speak. You must allow the ache to be what it is. Information, not punishment. It is trying to tell you something. That your way of surviving has become your way of disappearing. That you have built a life where functioning replaced feeling. That you have forgotten the language of gentleness. Especially toward yourself. They say emotions are energy in motion. So what happens when you stop them from moving? They stagnate. They curdle into exhaustion. Your sadness becomes apathy. Your anger becomes fatigue. Your fear becomes stillness that feels like death. And so, you wonder why nothing excites you anymore. It is because your inner world is jammed too many unexpressed feelings waiting for permission to exist. You cannot fix what you will not face. And you cannot face what you keep labeling as weakness. So the loop continues. Suppression, exhaustion, distraction, collapse, until one day, you wake up and realize that even hope feels heavy. It watches this entire process, your tiredness. It does not mock you, it waits. Because it knows that one day, you will finally stop resisting it. And in that surrender, something new will begin to form. But for now, you keep walking through days that feel too similar, carrying the invisible burden of being fine. You confuse stability with healing, and every time you tell yourself I should be grateful, you silence another cry for help from within. You are not ungrateful. You are unmet. You are not lazy. You are lonely inside your own performance. You are not broken. You are emotionally overworked. It is not that you lack energy. It is that too much of your energy is spent hiding your truth. It begins quietly, the moment you stop trying to fix yourself. Not because you have given up, but because you finally understand that you were never broken. You begin to see that your exhaustion was not a flaw, but a message, a sacred language of the soul asking you to slow down. It had been trying to reach you for years, through subtle signs and sudden pauses, through forgotten joy, through tears that never fell, through the way your body tensed when someone asked, "Are you okay?" It was never against you. It was trying to protect you from the noise. It was saying, "You have carried enough." You start to realize that healing is not about regaining energy. It is about reclaiming honesty. Because pretending consumes far more energy than feeling ever could. And once you begin to tell the truth, even quietly, even just to yourself, you begin to breathe differently. You start to notice small things again. The texture of light on the wall in the morning. The sound of your own footsteps on the floor. The quiet between heartbeats that says, "You are still here." This is where you begin to return to yourself, not through force, but through permission. Permission to rest without guilt. Permission to be ordinary for a while. Permission to stop explaining your fatigue to those who do not understand. You begin to see that peace is not found in isolation from life, but in participation without self-erasure. That rest is not a reward, it is a right, and that healing is not dramatic. It is deliberate. It begins when you finally decide to stop chasing what drains you. When you begin to ask what actually nourishes me, instead of what makes me valuable. And when the answer comes, it will not sound like ambition. It will sound like quiet. They will not understand at first. People are suspicious of those who slow down. They will call you lazy, distant, or unmotivated. But you will know the truth, that you are finally choosing life over performance. They have been taught to glorify exhaustion, to call it purpose. They wear burnout like armor and call it discipline. But you are beginning to see that rest is rebellion in a world addicted to doing. They will tell you that you must keep up, but you will no longer hear them the same way. Because once you have tasted stillness, noise becomes unbearable. Once you have known the depth of your own fatigue, you no longer measure worth in output. They will talk, but you will listen differently now. Not to respond, but to discern. You will begin to protect your silence as if it were oxygen, because you will know how costly it was to lose it. You start learning a new rhythm, one built not on achievement but alignment. You wake up slower. You breathe deeper. You no longer fill every moment with obligation. You learn that saying no is not rejection, it is redirection. You learn that stillness is not absence, it is repair. And when the old patterns try to pull you back, when the voice in your mind says, "You are wasting time," you pause and remind yourself that you are not resting to recover from more exhaustion. You are resting to remember who you are when you are not exhausted, because you were never meant to live in constant defense. You were meant to create, to feel, to connect, but all those things require presence, and presence requires energy. And energy cannot exist where self-betrayal lives. You start forgiving yourself, not for what you did, but for what you endure. You forgive yourself for mistaking silence for strength, compliance for love, fatigue for discipline. You forgive yourself for staying too long in places that dimmed your spirit, because now you see that staying alive and truly living are not the same thing. It no longer feels dramatic to say, "I am tired," because you understand that tiredness is not shameful. It is sacred information. It tells you where your boundaries were crossed. It tells you where you have been giving without receiving. It tells you what parts of your life are unsustainable. And instead of running from it, you start listening to it. You let it guide you home. Not to who you were before the exhaustion, but to who you were meant to become because of it. They begin to notice something different about you. You still move through life, but slower, softer, more intentional. You no longer rush to fill silence. You no longer over-explain your existence. You no longer confuse being busy with being alive. They might call it detachment, but it is not detachment. It is discernment. You have learned to differentiate between noise and nourishment, between people who drain and people who see, between activity that distracts and stillness that heals. They might think you are colder now, but really, you are just clearer, because you have learned that empathy without boundaries becomes exhaustion, and selflessness without balance becomes self-erasure. It begins to change shape now. Your tiredness, it no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like an old teacher whose lessons you have finally understood. It softens its grip as you honor its message. It no longer needs to scream through headaches, numbness, or apathy, because you have begun to listen. And in that listening, something inside you begins to unfold, not joy exactly, but a quiet readiness for life again. You start to see that your exhaustion was never a punishment. It was preparation, a forced pause from the universe that said, "If you will not stop willingly, I will make you stop lovingly." And now that you have paused long enough to see, you realize that stillness is not the absence of progress. It is the birthplace of awareness. You sit with yourself in the dim light of evening. No phone, no sound. And for the first time in years, you feel no urge to escape. You look around and see simplicity, a room, a breath, a presence. And that is enough. You realize that you are not behind in life. You were never late. You were only disconnected from your own rhythm. And now that you have found it, time itself feels slower, kinder. You are not fully healed, but you are honest. You are not constantly happy, but you are whole. And that wholeness is the beginning of true rest. Because peace was never about having nothing to do, it was about finally being at home in yourself while doing it. And maybe, just maybe, that is what being alive truly means. Your exhaustion was never the end. It was the beginning, the place where you finally learned to rest without running. Subscribe for more reflections like this, quiet reminders for tired souls learning how to feel again.